On with the show.
1986. The world watched as NASA's Challenger space shuttle exploded shortly after liftoff. The world mourned the loss of the 7 astronauts who were on board. However, 20 years later, investigators would discover that the 7 crew members never actually boarded the shuttle that fateful day. Now I know what you're thinking. You're ready to call bullshit on this one, but let me stop you right here. The evidence that you are about to see will absolutely blow your mind. Sure, you've probably heard a dozen media outlets calling this a cooked-up conspiracy theory, but nothing could be further from the truth. Many people remember watching the explosion happen live on television, I myself being one of them. There is no doubt in my mind that the explosion was very real. In this video, we will examine footage from various sources that not only prove that 5 of the 7 Challenger crew members are alive and well today, but will also shed light on the possible reasons why they were not on board. 3 of the 5 astronauts, Judy Resnick, Richard Scobie, and Michael J. Smith. These 3 crew members were not only found to be alive, but they were still using their original names. You may be wondering, why wouldn't they change their names? And the answer is relatively simple. Their names were not too well known, and in 1986, living under the radar was much easier prior to the internet age.
Yep.
Is it possible that these 3 astronauts could have living doppelgangers that just so happen to have the same names? Not likely, and here's why. Although Michael J. Smith is a common name, the names of the other 2 astronauts, Judy Resnick and Richard Scobie, are exceptionally uncommon. For example, there are only 6 women currently living in the United States with the name Judy or Judith Resnick, and there are only 16 men named Richard, Rick, Rich, or Dick Scobie. What are the chances that all 3 of these astronauts would have living doppelgangers with the same names? I'll let you ponder on these odds for a moment. The other 2 astronauts, Ronald McNair and Ellison Onizuka, both supposedly have living twin brothers named Carl McNair and Claude Onizuka. However, no birth records could be found for either one of them. What's even more interesting is this. Let's take a look at this footage from then-President Ronald Reagan's memorial service for the Challenger crew, parents and siblings of Ellison Onizuka. But where is his living twin brother Claude? And here we can see the family of Ronald McNair, but his living twin brother Carl is nowhere to be seen. The reason Carl and Claude were not in attendance for their deceased brother's memorial is the same reason why there are no birth records for either of them. They do not exist. An investigator tracked down Challenger pilot Michael J. Smith and conducted a field interview, which he later posted on social media.
Is Challenger pilot Michael J. Smith alive and well? Take a look at the footage and let me know what you think. Hey there. Hey, sorry to bother you. I was pulling out and I saw you. I just came by to... Are you Michael Smith?
Yeah.
Professor at university?
Retired.
Retired?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just stopped by because there's this room. Are you aware of that there's a rumor on the internet?
It's not me.
That people are saying...
Yeah, it's not me, obviously. I mean, anybody that looks at my background, looks where I was born, it's not me. I mean, it's interesting that the Michael J. Smith that was the astronaut looks something like me when we were younger. But really not, if you really look at facial recognition.
You've never been a pilot, never been in the military?
Nothing like that.
Huh.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
And I don't respond to the emails I get. I get probably an email, maybe 2 a month.
Really?
And I got one guy that's been really hounding me, and I turned it over to the FBI.
Really?
I mean, it's bullshit.
Okay.
Another crazy theory.
Okay.
But that's, not me.
I'm
glad I wasn't him, but he was quite a guy.
Yeah.
But if you look at my career, you look at my CV that's online, all the stuff I've published, all that I've done, it's not even close to what that guy was.
Okay. Yeah, you just sure look alike. It's the same name.
I know the facial thing, but that's what we looked like, 40 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Voice analysis of the living Judy Resnick, compared to the Challenger astronaut Judy Resnick, confirms that they are indeed the same person.
I am hoping that the
The affliction that Steve Hawley had from the 41D mission specialist of the delays hasn't rubbed off on me.
For a very long arm, which is as long as the cargo bay, it's 50 feet long.
The image lets you see all of the current contemporary issues. All courts shall be open, property remedy by due course of law. You can find these. The equal justice under law becomes that we thought courts were all along. It says equal justice under law.
That is a distinct voice.
There are many possible reasons why the crew did not board the Challenger that day. One theory is that the Challenger's final mission was deceptively unmanned due to limited funding and to maintain NASA's position as the world leader in space exploration. Clues uncovered in a documentary produced by National Geographic on the Challenger disaster seem to support this theory. Now let me ask you this. If you were offered $4.7 million to pretend that your loved one was deceased, would you do it? Of course you would. I think you get the gist of what I'm saying here.
It could be gone. It's such a tough one. It's such an elaborate conspiracy because it's not just what if these people. It's not just what if, because the implications are that this is just one of the many things that was faked and hoaxed. And to what extent would this organization go to push what they want people to think realistically?
They had to keep doctoring on the clone of Michael who was alive. The one that was dancing with Michael, the dance with James Brown. Okay, that Michael Jackson, that wasn't the real Michael. When they cloned Michael, that clones don't grow hair. So in other words, however they clone you, whatever you have, that's how you're going to come out. People around them to tell them what they do because they get adolescence. They can't think properly. It's called handlers, right? So when Michael started to break down, his body was breaking down. His nose was artificial. I don't know if y'all noticed. Go back and Google Michael Jackson nose. It looks like a robot because it wasn't him. His whole head was a wig. It was a cap because when they first cloned Michael, he didn't have any hair.
Los Angeles, Miko Brando, who was with us almost every night after this untimely passing, longtime Michael Jackson friend attending the funeral. And Dave, yes, that's his name, Dave. He was David Rothenberg. He was set on fire in 1983, suffered, as you can see, terrible scars. Michael Jackson befriended him and paid for a lot of his surgeries. Dave is also attending the burial. Why Dave?
Well, to liberate my...
Just the tickets. We're all seated. So as we, talking, sometimes I forget that he's supposed to be in his disguise, And I keep calling him Mike. Right, and this little girl hears it. She's like, and she looks over, and I think she recognized him. Like, I really think she did. So then when I realized she was peeping, then I start calling him Dave. But she wasn't stupid. So she runs up, shoo.
And may change how you feel.
As for Michael's sometimes bizarre appearance, they say these bandages had nothing to do with secret surgeries.
Was he concealing an injury with those bandages?
No. That disguise to him was the burn victim look.
It was a disguise?
It was a disguise to him.
When you saw him coming downstairs getting ready to get in the car with the bandages, what did you think?
Something's up with him.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, something's up. On him. And first thing out his mouth was, get that gun out of my face or I'm calling the press, which took me back.
Unbelievable.
We made Mr. Jackson aware that your brother Randy is downstairs asking to see you very adamantly. And
what did Michael say?
He was not happy.
Did he see him?
No.
Randy Jackson admits he was there that night, but denies he ever set foot on the property. And as for that much talked about family intervention for Michael's alleged drug abuse, they say they were there for that too. For Michael's alleged drug abuse, they say they were there for that too.
And he said, I'll only see my brothers.
They never got into the house.
No, he came outside.
He came into the trailer.
Security trailer, right.
He met his brothers in the security trailer.
Right.
Absolutely.
How was Michael afterwards?
Fine.
He didn't seem upset?
No, he just left the trailer and went back in the house.
Did he seem like he had a drug problem?
A drug problem? No.
The whole Michael Jackson situation is definitely suspicious from the ground up. There are a lot of unanswered questions in that realm. I would be curious to find out the truth, but it's unlikely that we'll ever get the truth regarding Michael Jackson and that whole situation.
This world is not what you think it is. Part 4. Today we're talking about cymatics. By now, everybody's heard about good vibes, bad vibes. They're talking about vibrations. Everything has a vibration. This is going to be a little bit of a deep dive, but I promise you all, if you stick with me, there's a payload at the end that's going to connect a lot of dots for you. Now, I'm going to show you something really quick. On the left, you see what used to be the standard tuning frequency for all instruments across the world, which got changed in the 1930s to the one that you saw on the right. You see the difference? You see how one's just beautiful and the other one's just blurry and messy? Okay, stay with me. Now watch this.
What the hell is that?
That's literally the vibration from a car stereo, who knows what frequency it is, actually changing the physical form of that car because it's going so hard. All right, now here it is in nature.
That's cool.
You find these patterns absolutely everywhere. Now I want to show you something else that's going to blow your mind. You may not know what those were, but on the left, those were the shapes of glass windows that were installed in churches and cathedrals all across the world. Some refer to them as Tartarian architecture. Now, we're all familiar with going to churches to get spiritual healing, but did you ever think that maybe people went to churches to get physical, actual, practical healing? Now, keep following me. Check out these organs. They used to have and still have these organs in tons of churches and cathedrals all across the world. Now, it's said, and I believe this, that those symbols on the outside of the window that actually represent a frequency was the frequency in which that church resonated. So people would go in there and get healed, a whole body healing. You already saw what it can do to vehicles. How much more so can it do that to our body? How much of our body is made up of water? Okay, now that you know this, how important is it to be careful of what you listen to and what you put into your ears? The final question, do you think maybe all of those artists and all of those performers that are performing rituals and ceremonies at their concerts right now and that have been for decades, do you think that maybe they know how this works? And maybe they've weaponized it?
Just a thought. So with that said, with it being weaponized, and he mentioned about it being potentially used as a physical restoration or a physical healing, is it possible that potentially over the years they have degraded these physical healing abilities? Because I heard recently that they have also been getting rid of a lot of church bells around the world as well. And the theory goes that that's exactly why as well, because they have healing properties and they don't want the world to be healing.
13 families. The most powerful family here in the American shores who came over are the Collins family. Collins comes from Colón, Cristobal Colón, who is Columbus. Hence you've got the District of Columbia, the Knights of Columbia, Columbia Pictures, Columbia the country, British Columbia. Who owns that? Families. They own them. That's why they have their separate state laws, because it goes back to their separate trust funds that they created.
DC, is that not part of the United States? Because they always say they complain they can't vote in America, but that's done on purpose, right? That it's kind of like the City of London and the Vatican. It's its own sovereign thing. Am I wrong on that?
Farnese family owns it, and the Orsini, Colonna, absolutely the Colonna family, which is Collins, the Collins family. They own it all. It's their property. Satanic families who come to pollute our minds with all this perversity.
UFO. UFO.
Never seen something like that before. Wow. How incredible that would be to see.
This is, my name is James.
As you can see, the man is acting very strange and almost doesn't know how to answer his questions. When the homeowner asks who he is looking for, pay attention to the name he gives.
Sosa. Sammy?
He first says Sosa, then he says Sammy, like Sammy Sosa, the baseball player. It was likely the first name he could come up with on the spot for a fake friend he was looking for. The homeowner then threatens the man to leave.
What's your name? James.
And who are you looking for?
No, a friend of mine.
No friend of yours lives here, buddy. And I got a Glock over here ready for you. So if you don't get the off my porch, I'm going to unload it on your face. Get the off my porch.
The reason why he was trying to get inside the house is unknown. No one knows what could have happened if the man would have let him inside. The homeowner handled the situation the correct way by talking to the man through the locked and closed door via the Ring doorbell camera. And once he noticed the man's strange and suspicious behavior, he threatened him to leave.
It just seemed like the guy was looking for a friend. No, I think he was on some drugs or something, honestly. Got some Cthulhu tentacles here. Alright, so if this is real, I don't think I would approach it. I mean, I would definitely want to record it, but to get this close to something that could clearly mess you up.
The clip was captured at 3 in the morning on April 9th, 2023. It happened in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The homeowner was sleeping when the clip was recorded. It wasn't until he woke up and saw...
Oh, please! Please help! Somebody!
I would like a bone.
Giant monsters.
And who are they and why are they here?
They're a natural defense mechanism from the planet. They've been here longer than any of us have, or since before the dinosaurs even. These are creatures that go back millions of years potentially and have been living there for a very, very long time. My personal encounter with them is they're highly intelligent, and I guarantee you a living creature that's 200 or 300 feet tall, that's, several 100,000 or 1,000,000 years old, has a consciousness that probably defies understanding from me or you anyway.
How long have they been here?
Millions of years. Probably even maybe since the beginning of the planet.
Could you give me an example of what one of these giants looked like?
Sure. I've only had one personal experience that I can relate. While I have been briefed on the subject and I could describe a few other things, I only have one personal experience that I was there for, saw with my own eyes, and experienced with my own 5 senses. So if you want to imagine something that resembles a big furry primate, maybe like a sloth that walks on its hands and is covered with hair that looks like giant dreadlocks.
How tall do you think, could you estimate?
I would estimate that it was probably between 250 and 300 feet tall.
How do they grow to such an extreme size, and why aren't we not seeing them on the surface?
Well, I think we're talking about pre-primordial times, so we're talking about before the dinosaurs, when plants and animals were even larger. So I think we're just talking about they came from a time when biological life grew bigger.
What are your thoughts on this?
Humans this, humans that, who cares? The moon is watching us and nobody is talking about that. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, but I'm not because I ran out of crazy pills. I need more. When am I getting paid?
On tonight's episode of the Unanswered Oddities, Exarchies. This ritual of self-harassment saw some of the mythical humans trying to mystically transform their bodies through motion alchemy and strain worship. Legend claims these punishment ceremonies resulted in a metamorphosis that made humans healthier, stronger, and helped hide their personalities. Humans that successfully shapeshifted would no longer have to wear their shirt in the pool. Unthinkable today. The monolith, in its infinite wisdom, assures us that any physical activity beyond our daily duties is completely unnecessary, as we are already in peak form needed for our individual job assignments. Which might make one wonder, was the extra torment of Exarchies really worth it? Rural Morgmog, now 6 hours from Deedle. One Glurin has transformed.
I don't know how it happened. I was just doing my lurks. I wanted to find a human so I could prove they were real. And I thought, humans might be a little twisted like me, and want to get under a rock so they could wait. Just regular, eerie waiting. And so I'd pick up a rock and look under it, no human. And I'd pick up another rock, look under it, no human. And I just kept doing that day after day, month after month. And I'd start leaking this salty syrup stuff, which I'd never leaked before, and I've leaked a lot of stuff. So I tried to lick this up, of course, and it just kept coming, and it was so salty, but I kept licking. So I was lurking, lifting, licking, lurking, lifting, licking, and I didn't realize it. But I was exorcising. By the time I tried to stop, it was too late. I transformed.
Poor thing.
I used to be desirable. Now I can lurk a mile in 6 minutes. I've never been more confident. I've never felt so good. Be strong, Bobo. Be strong. Emotionally, physically, I am yacked.
For most humans, the process of exarchies went a little something like this. They would visit a man named Jim and pay to sit on his bench so they could lift some dumb-looking bells and be forced to watch a fox read them the news. I'm not gonna say it. I am more than that line. I am complicated. I am complex. I am a sandstorm in a rose garden. And if I have to say that stupid line one more time, I will blow my brains out. And that would be quite the sight.
Exarchies does indeed seem like a silly process, but some Glurins object to the monolith's assurances that we do not need it.
Listen up, brother. The only person who gets to tell Tiggy what not to do is Tiggy, and I don't even listen to him, which is exactly why I am going to start exarchising. Not today. I can't today because I've got the wrong shoes on. But tomorrow, for sure.
For sure.
Oh, wait, I'm eating all day tomorrow. Okay, well, next week. I'm starting next week, no matter what. Unless I'm somewhat sleepy. Then I'll just wait till next year. And when the am I getting paid?
Yes, well, we can't technically pay our on-screen talent right now. We did send a field producer to pay a visit to Bobo one more time to see how he's doing. Let's take a look at that footage.
I've come to learn that it's not what's on the outside that counts. Sometimes you're a tiny little small creep on the inside. That's all that matters. And I actually met someone. So maybe exarchies isn't all that bad. Her name's Ragnora.
That's fine. doesn't bother me or anything. No, I'm fine. I'm good. Who's the snow good? I have never been better. It's fine. Ragnora is her own miller, and she can make her own decisions, and that's totally funny. With me, I'm so happy for them. I am so.
Listen, Glurins. Frag Snarble was betrayed. Follow the cookie crumbs. The resistance is with you. The monolith must fall.
So happy for them. I couldn't be happier, really. I could not be happier. I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier. I'm still happy. I'm happy and just happy.
So the graphics, the visuals seem to be upgraded somehow. They look cleaner and crisper. The writing's still amazing. Tiggy's still rocking it. The Exarchy's premise, perfect. Very great satire. And the Ragnora getting with the host is icing on the cake. He was so happy. You could tell he was so happy.
Listen up, brother, because I'm about to open your third eye's fourth eye. Time is a construct made up by the big clock industry so they can keep us addicted to their minute munchers, which is exactly why I stopped looking at them. I don't know what day or time it is. I'm pretty sure I haven't slept in 84 hours, and I have never been more certain that I'm absolutely terrified of everything. Wake up!
Damn, it's so good.
On tonight's episode of Unanswered Oddities, Saint Nicholas. This magical red-coated pervert was said to terrorize multiple homes on a single night by breaking in and kissing mummies all across the world. His depraved power was immeasurable. He would know when you were sleeping. He would know when you're awake. He would loiter in shopping malls with mini smoke breaks. Despite this debauchery, humans actually celebrated St. Nicholas in a magical time of mass delusion called Christmas. There would be songs and decorations in a game called Hide the Liquor from Uncle Ron. At first glance, St. Nicholas and Christmas might seem much like how we celebrate the monolith on Mono Day, all the festivities during hate throwing. But the fabled deviancy of St. Nicholas would have been something else entirely, which might make one wonder, why did the mythical humans encourage this terror? Valley, 3 hours before Deedle. One Glurin claims to have been visited by St. Nicholas.
She's wearing her fancies.
These ain't my fancies.
She got dressed up for y'all.
My fancies sparkle. These ain't sparkling.
Can we get y'all something to drink? Just keep in mind, we don't have anything.
I was the one that saw the perv. And I should tell y'all, I ain't no crazy Glurin. I don't believe in them humans, but I do know what I saw. And he was peeping through our windows, and I caught him. And I must have spooked him something good, because he done somehow got himself up on the roof after that. And you know, I can hear his dainty boots clicking around up there, and I just know he's trying to see me in my fancies and smooch me, and I was scared, but I was about to be smooched or nothing, so I did the only thing I could. I set fire to the house, you know, smoke him off the roof. That's why when y'all came in, there wasn't a front door. But it worked. You know, he scampered away into the night. You know, he just scamped away.
I wasn't home at the time. I was at the bingo.
He's always going to the bingo without me.
Now that ain't true.
He's a bingo sneak.
You never want to go.
You never invite me. I just want to be invited. You know how much I love hearing letters and numbers be called out. You know that.
Saint Nicholas enacted torment in a variety of ways. From what we know, some of it went a little like this. He would saddle enraged deer to a red Chevrolet and make them pull him from home to home so he could put peasants under a tree. It would have been quite the sight. The sight would have been quite. My doctor put me on Monodrex, and I'd never been more involuntarily agreeable.
The tyranny of St. Nicholas would have certainly been sadistic, but that's only if you would have believed in St. Nicholas in the first place.
This whole St. Nicholas it's all psyops. Spell St. Nicholas backwards. It doesn't make any sense. It's all gibberish. Something's going on. But if this guy is real and he's got lists, I want to see who's on those lists. Release the names on the lists, you coward. Unless I'm on those lists, in which case there's a perfectly good reason for that.
Whether you believe or not, the Walmack twins have still had a surprising revelation after their supposed visit from the mythical Saint Nicholas.
I can't fully say what I saw that night, but what I can say is that it got me and my brother talking about our bingo problems, and now we're closer than ever.
From now on, I ain't going to the bingo without her. She's my bingo buddy.
Oh, thanks, Zep.
You're welcome, pet.
Shortly after the incident, authorities apprehended a potential suspect, and we here at Unanswered Oddities were able to obtain an exclusive interview.
Yeah, I'm Chris Crinkle, Mary Chitlinch, joined all into Olligan Joy, but I'm also he, sis, I am they, and I remembered what I'm supposed to tell y'all. We're gonna watch it.
Listen, Glorians, I feel like you are not listening. The monolith lies, you must stand up. I cannot fight this alone. I mean, we can't fight this alone. There are more Glorians here than just me. They are in the bathroom right now, like 100 Glorians in the bathroom. Not just me. The monolith must fall.
And now you'll live forever. Merry Christmas.
Maybe being subjected to the horror of Christmas time actually brought humans closer together to bond in their shared fear of a big perv. If so, I personally think it would be great to share a fear with the ones I love. In this year, despite some hardships, I feel like for the first time I'm actually surrounded by those I care about. Wouldn't you all agree?
I'll agree with anything.
I don't even know what your name is.
Yes, you don't.
Another great episode. I'm curious where they're taking this glitching interference hacker guy. That seems to be, it could just be potentially a couple of one-offs where they're setting up jokes, but this could also lead into something bigger. I like the characters Zep and Pep, the brother and sister duo. They're pretty funny. Overall, pretty good episode. The ability to interweave in things that we propagate as far as the St. Nicholas myth that we teach children presently, and they're able to interweave this in as a real thing. That's interesting how they're able to take these premises and spin them so well.
I'm sure for a lot of you guys watching this video, this photo right here makes you pretty uncomfortable. And to be honest with you guys, it makes me very uncomfortable as well. Many of you guys might be familiar with the topic of this slideshow. A lot of people seem to think that this is completely normal, but another group of people that are probably larger think something very strange is going on here. The first slide here starts off by showing an invitation to a party, and the second image shows a photo at that party with some very creepy get-ups. So for some context, this whole party and get-together here has everything to do with the Rothschilds. If you guys aren't familiar with who they are, they're an extremely powerful and influential family, and they have been so for centuries. So the Rothschilds ended up building their dynasty primarily through the use of banking, at least in the early days, and financing a lot of wars and conflicts, which of course makes a lot of money. Fast forward to the current era, and they are still an extremely wealthy family. There have been quite a few estimates to try to figure out how much their family's net worth is, with some of the higher end ones being $15 trillion, which is absolutely insane. Needless to say, when wealthy people have this level of money, there's not a lot of things that are off limits, and back in the 60s and 70s, the Rothschilds would consistently throw these lavish parties, and this one was from 1972, the Surrealist Ball. Even though this ball contained a bunch of high-level politicians, celebrities, and people that were extremely dialed in and well-known, there really aren't a whole lot of photos besides a few of the costumes that they wore, and they were very creepy. Thinking about the term surrealist ball, the entire purpose of this party was to have an experience that was different from reality. So the outfits were supposed to be very strange, the food courses were also very strange, even down to the invitation, which was written in reverse. Now, because of how secretive this party was, there are a lot of people that do think there's some strange symbolism here going on. Specifically, starting with the invitation being in reverse, usually this is something that you'll see a lot of devil worshippers do, at least according to a lot of the conspiracy theorists here. So that's the first red flag. On top of this, you have people wearing fictitious animal heads, which is also something that is commonly seen in Satanism, and you also have a bunch of symbolism with the all-seeing eye, according to a lot of people. Additionally, a lot of very creepy dolls ended up decorating a lot of the tables here that people were dining at, and a lot of people think that this is a nod towards human sacrifice, though these claims are completely unsupported. So basically, we have two trains of thought. Number one, this was an eccentric way for billionaires and very wealthy people to get together and have a fun party. Or number two, a way of sending a message that they're the elite and they're going to own the world, all the while doing a bunch of secret rituals behind the scenes.
Definitely creepy as hell. That is the epitome of the elite, just essentially shoving it in our faces, saying, look at how crazy eccentric we can be, and use these symbols to show everything that we are and everything that we believe, just right in your face, hidden in plain sight, and most people will just shrug it off and say, oh, those weird billionaires. Ugh.
We all remember Robin Williams, right? The man of a million faces and a million voices and a whole lot of characters. Well, did you ever see this character, Uncle Pappy? Did you see this one? You ever see Uncle Pappy? It's a brilliant character by Robin Williams. And I wonder if maybe the name Uncle Pappy came from one of his original characters. Early on, he played Popeye. And do you know what Popeye calls his father? Oh, he calls him Pappy. And you want to see how his Pappy is depicted in the cartoons? So Uncle Pappy has his shirt off a lot, and Popeye's Pappy seems to have his shirt off a lot, but Robin Williams didn't really have his shirt off a lot in his movies, except for one I found. And the one I found was in the movie Hook, and it looked like maybe he got hooked there, but that's not part of the movie. That's a real scar. But even though Uncle Pappy has his shirt off in every video, he seems to keep it above his waist all the time. Except for this one clip when he was mowing the lawn, and couldn't help but notice some scarring there.
No way.
Some scarring on that character of Uncle Pappy, and also on Robin Williams. I mean, of course he's going to have the same scars, just like he has the same 2 dots from one character to the next character. Only one of these characters was played and created many years after someone supposedly died. You know, it comes time in one's life when you have to assess things and ask yourself, am I really doing what's right? And have I done what's right in the past? And if you come to the conclusion that maybe what I'm doing isn't good and isn't right, and then you need to ask yourself, what can I do to move forward to do what's good and right? And well, I have some thoughts on that. Even if you were once part of a bad club or a bad crowd, or you were even a gang member or a cult member or something like that, it's never too late to change your ways. Heck, you can resort all the way back to your days at Deer Path Middle School in Lake Forest, Illinois, and think, boy, I sure had a good heart then. Do I still have that same good heart? But what's beautiful is, even if you've been with a bad crowd and you've done bad things, and you feel guilty over it, and shame, and even remorse, well, it's never too late to change your ways. You don't have to be quiet about it. You can say something about it. You can come out, and you might just be that one match that starts a huge fire that burns something all the way down. You could be that one match to change this whole thing. Just you alone, coming out and admitting what you've done could change everything for everyone from this point moving forward. And even though it might be scary, well, you could potentially have millions of people on your side defending you from whatever they might want to do to you. I'm hoping that maybe for you it's all that you can stand and you can't stand no more. Now, I don't know where you're at, but I can't stand it anymore, and I'm trying to do something about it. And maybe you're comfy in your little hideout in Florida, hanging out with the gators. But I don't think you realize the power you have, the absolute power you have to just speak out, just come out, tell your story, be protected by the armor of God, take on the full armor of God, and tell your story, and crumble down this entire false narrative that we've all been living under for hundreds of years. You have the power, Robin. You have the power. What are you going to do with it? Of course, this is all for entertainment purposes. I know that Robin Williams passed away after his long, hard fight with depression. God rest his soul. Entertainment purposes only.
Whoa. So we saw last week the first video about Robin Williams potentially being Uncle Pappy, this amateur YouTuber, and I came across this little more in-depth dive into it, and he brought some additional photo evidence, and honestly it kind of makes sense. What really kind of surprises me is this guy's advocating for this, what would be a complete admission of everything from this new character, as if it was really Robin Williams, and saying, hey, come forward, tell your story. Yes, they're going to hate you. Yes, they're going to try to off you. Yes, they're going to do all this, but you have enough supporters and you have enough people that would back you up, essentially. Assuming that this unrealistic thing were to be true, it is entirely possible that that could be the fuse that brought it all forward. If he came forward admitting it was all a sham, that it's all just a secret religion, and just came forward with everything, would that even be enough? That would be a really, really wild premise. What are your thoughts on all this? I'm very curious your thoughts here.
A question people often ask is one I'm not quite sure I can answer, but I'll try.
How do you stay awake if your eyes are closed most of the time?
I guess what you're thinking then is, do I just fall asleep all day? Like, at the drop of a hat, am I all of a sudden asleep? No. I think it's more about being tired than anything else. I mean, just because my eyes are closed doesn't mean, like if you close your eyes. I mean, if everybody watching this video right now, let's all just try it. 1 second. Close your eyes. Look, they're all asleep. Unbelievable. Of course you're not sleeping. Is that too much?
How do you fall asleep?
When I fall asleep, I just lie down and, I just get comfortable, like anybody else does, I think. And just all of a sudden, it starts to go, like on the cartoons or whatever. I don't know. But, it all starts to just go away and I just, fall asleep. I guess it sort of fades out. No, that's not really accurate either, though, is it? It doesn't really fade out. I don't know. I just fall asleep. I just stop. It's just lie down, comfortable, poof, off I go. Snoresville, man.
How do you know when you're awake if you're blind?
Well, that maybe there's a sound outside, or I just naturally wake up and I can just tell that the sleep is over. I can, like my surroundings, I can reach over and check the phone and see if there's any email or anything like that. I just start doing things just like you do. What a horrible answer. Let's say I'm tired during the day and I'm bored or whatever, or like maybe in class, back in school, right? I used to lean down and just sort of rest a little bit. And it was great because people could never tell whether or not I was sleeping because my eyes were closed all the time. So it was genius. I used to sleep through class a lot. I had one teacher who'd always catch me. They'd be like, Thomas E., what's the answer to number 16? And I'd be like, oh my God, now what?
So I think naturally a lot of us are curious about just how other people think. I know I am. And this video came across my radar. How does a blind person know if they're awake? Back when I was in college, I was taking American Sign Language as a course. And I made friends with a deaf man that only spoke through ASL, ASL. And I was curious one time when we were hanging out, how do you think when you're, just narrating your own day? And he told me that he actually thinks in sign language. And I found that to be a really interesting premise, that people just think differently and they have their own unique ways to perceive reality and to interpret the thoughts that enter their mind. But with that said, another interesting premise that I have found fascinating over the years is the concept that not everybody has the inner monologue that a lot of us have when we think. When we just go about our day, we essentially self-narrate how we approach things. And it happens so fluently and so quickly, we don't even really think about it. It just happens. But some people apparently don't have that inner monologue. And this is a really interesting premise because it leads to the second theory that some people are NPCs, non-playable characters, as if they're characters from a video game that were programmed essentially to be here to interact with the player characters. Obviously, we'll never be able to find out if that's the case, but nevertheless, I've found an interesting interview between somebody that had a internal monologue like I do, and presumably most viewers here do, but maybe you don't. But nevertheless, it was an interview between somebody with an internal monologue and somebody without, and he was kind of asking, how do you think and how you approach things? So let's dive into that together.
All right. So I found out a few days ago that not everyone has the ability to speak in their brain, and the first person that I asked if they could do it was her, and turns out she can't. So I asked a bunch of people to ask me questions so I could ask her so she could try to make light of this wild situation. So like if you look, like I could look at myself in the mirror, talk in my head without opening my mouth. You physically can't do that.
No.
And what would happen if you tried to do that?
I have tried to do that since learning that an internal monologue exists, and I end up speaking out loud to myself. So most of my conversations are out loud.
I feel like this information to the people that can think in their head is a lot more like exciting news. I've talked to a few people that can't do this, and they seem less enthused as the people that do have this internal monologue.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yep. I'm very confused as to why people are so perplexed.
All right,
by
so
it.
the probably most requested question was, how do you read? Like when I read, I hear the words in my head. I don't know how you could possibly read without not hearing the words.
When I read, I can see the sentence structure. Like in my head, every sentence has a shape, so you can see like the shape of the sentence. And then also like keywords will pop out, and I can file those away into my like concept map. So at the end of reading something, I can have a concept map of the main topics that I read about. And I tend to move my lips when I read. So like essentially I'm saying it out loud, but it's just not like audible.
So do you visualize the setting when you're reading a book?
No, it's not like images. It's just the words.
So do you like reading like fiction books, like where you have to put yourself in a situation?
I never really enjoyed reading.
At all?
I think maybe that's why. Like I can see the story plot.
Are you a fast reader?
Yes, very fast reader.
All right, we could have a...
That's actually something I was thinking of as he asked that initial question of how do you read, is it does seem like if you don't have to interpret, if you will, if you don't have to interpret what the words mean and you just see it, then essentially you would read and understand things faster. But the way she says it, she sees the structure and then she sees the words, which she can associate to a concept map. It's kind of the same concept that internal monologues have, but it's just a different approach. It's such a fascinating. It's also interesting that people without the internal monologue find it less intriguing, which kind of supports the NPC hypothesis, but who knows? Let's keep going.
100 question test. She's done when I'm on question 12. I'm not even kidding. It is superhuman. It's not fair. How do you know what you're thinking if there's no words?
Because I can see it.
I think that's why this whole thing is going viral, is because people like me can't understand how you get through a day without talking to yourself.
I don't know. I just feel like the information is in there. And I can pull it forward if I wanted. Like, it's all just like, it's like files. There's categories of information in my head, and I can pull them to the front if I need them. But
I feel like I could do that. Like, if I'm studying, I could, like, pull things out. But just, like, if I'm sitting and, like, I have a thought, or someone is, like, walking by and I have a thought about that person, I'm, like, talking to myself about that. Does that not happen to you?
No. If I have a thought, normally I say it out loud.
Do you daydream often?
No, never. Hardly ever.
Oh, wow. That's huge. Okay, that's huge. Because even though I have an internal monologue, I daydream all the time. Probably to the point where it's detrimental to stuff I should be doing. But I almost don't look at it necessarily as daydreaming so much as just visioning my future, just saying, this is what I want to happen, and these are the steps that I would have to take to accomplish it. So I guess that's maybe not necessarily daydreaming, but that's fascinating. So they don't daydream at all.
Actually, I can't think of a time that I've daydreamed, I don't think.
Wow.
Do you dream at night?
Yes.
Okay, so that's an interesting question here, because she does dream, and I know I dream, but I don't ever remember my dreams. Maybe once or twice a year, I'll have like some vague inkling memory of, oh, I was dreaming about something or someone. And I can remember maybe specific situations, but I don't remember the dream outright. And after that morning where I have just the tiniest grasp of it is gone, and I won't remember it anymore at all.
Do you enjoy being alone? I like this question.
Yeah, I do.
So like if you don't have anything in front of you, like no stimulus, what is going on in your head?
Oh, I always have to be doing stuff. Like if I'm alone, I'm cleaning, I'm cooking, I'm like watching Netflix, I'm studying. But I hardly ever I don't just sit there alone.
Do you have any theories on this yourself? / do you even care?
I don't really care. Like this feels really normal to me.
I can't even do this because I can't wrap my head around this. But she is so nonchalant about it, it makes me uncomfortable. I don't get it.
I don't know. It's just my everyday life, so I just do it. Yeah. I do, like, if I'm laying in bed at night, like, I have trouble getting to sleep because I can see, like, lists of things I need to do. And in order to make them go away, I have to go write them down.
That's actually one of the questions. Do you fall asleep easily, like quickly, or
no?
Is it harder to fall asleep?
Harder to fall asleep. Because I think I'm being almost visually stimulated when even my eyes are closed. I can't shut it out.
Yeah, I feel like for me, that voice is just constantly talking, and that makes it also very difficult to sleep. And that's why I feel like a lot of people that are in my situation also think that, like, they wish they could shut it off, and they're kind of jealous of your situation. But then again, we don't know what's going on in your head at all, so it could be even worse. So
I feel like the conversations you're probably having in your head are what I'm seeing in my head.
Yeah.
So it's funny because you can look at it from the perspective of somebody with an internal monologue and potentially seeing it as, NPC way of thinking. But from the perspective of somebody without an internal monologue, hearing the concept of hearing voices in your head sounds psychotic too. So it's like which one would be the right or normal way, because both ends of the spectrum sounds like they could be loony in some ways.
Do you get anxiety?
Yeah. I tend to have really physical symptoms of anxiety. So it's less, I think, of a mental, like, I don't really feel like I am anxious until I realize that, like, my hands are shaking or I feel really nauseated or kind of more like physical symptoms of anxiety.
A bunch of people actually messaged me, and they said that most of the people that don't have this internal monologue are bilingual and speak multiple languages. Do you speak multiple languages, or
no?
Were you just good at, like, high school language, whatever you took?
Yeah, I was really good at high school language. I took 2 languages, and I know a little bit of 2 other languages. So I love language. I actually want to go into linguistics.
So that's an interesting premise. I hadn't really put 2 and 2 together on that, but maybe because they interpret words differently than somebody with an internal monologue who has to more or less translate it, maybe they will excel at adopting new languages. Because I know myself, I only took 1 or 2 different courses through high school and college for different languages, and both of them I struggled with massively. Even the English language I struggled with massively, but that may have just been for other complications when growing up.
At one point in my life.
That's interesting.
I love sentence structure.
If you're on a date, how do you know if you like them or not?
We still feel stuff.
You still feel it?
We still feel.
You're not, like, judging them, like, looking at them and being like, why would they wear that shirt? Or why does he keep talking,
I think
and why won't he shut up?
I think the things that you have in your head are probably more of, like, like, check boxes in my head. So, like, certain things will be like, yep, or like, nope.
I can't do this. When you're typing...
That's so interesting because, yeah, I think a lot of people that do have the internal monologue exactly as his little question mark popping up, like we do have instances where a thought or a question or a concern will pop up into our head and just overwrite whatever we are consuming otherwise, whether we're reading a book or hearing somebody talk. So it could overwrite. That internal monologue essentially takes priority over what we're currently engaged in. So, but we also have meditation, which is meditation, and that's something that I'm curious if he's going to go into, because meditation is essentially quieting the mind to that internal dialogue. So I'm curious how meditation works for this.
A sentence, like if you're writing a paper for school, how do you write a sentence if you don't think about like how you're going to phrase the words?
Because they connect.
They just do.
It's the sentence. So if there's a noun, it's followed by a verb. If there's and then it's all about the structure and the shape of the sentence. So I could, and also I read my papers aloud, or I'll speak them out loud as I'm typing them, and then I'll go back and I'll change maybe the sentence structure so that fits a better shape. Like, I don't know how to describe the shape of a sentence, but
when I write, I have thoughts and I write down what I think. So I can't comprehend how you could possibly just make a sentence without having like I don't know.
I have like an outline and a flow of where I want the paper to go. So from start to finish, I know exactly what I'm going to say, but not specifically word for word. I'll just start writing to make it say what I want it to. But I don't have a sentence that I hear in my head as I'm writing it. I just know where I'm starting and where I want it to go. So
I thought this was going to make my life easier and make all of the thinking stop, but this is not helping.
Sorry.
And I apologize if this you guys up even more. What else do we have? Oh, serious question. Have you ever had depression?
Yes.
And how does that manifest? Because I feel like most people that have depression have that little voice in the back of the head that is like just feeding them negative thoughts. So how does it manifest for you?
I'd say again, it was back in high school, but it was much more of a physical kind of. It's more of like the physical
fatigue?
symptoms. Yeah, feeling really fatigued, feeling no desire to get up or do anything, feeling
Lethargic?
no interest in doing anything. So it was not lack of a motivation is like a really poor term for that, but
Less happy emotions, would you say?
yeah,
Is it more an
feeling
emotional
disengaged, disinterested in life.
That makes
general.
sense.
Yeah.
Every time I shower, I relive an argument from like 2007 and I try to win that argument.
Yes, he's bringing up shower thoughts. It's like a human fact or whatever that we have the greatest epiphanies and thoughts in the shower when we're reflecting on these things. So it's interesting that he brings this up.
Do you not do that?
That sounds like a you problem.
It's not. It's unanimous.
No.
So you don't think about like discussions that you've had in the past and how you could have said something different in that situation?
No.
Have you?
I literally did that like last night.
I do it.
I do it all the time.
Every time I shower, I am constantly just thinking about conversations I've had, maybe some awkward interactions from middle school or
that far back.
Just whenever, I don't choose when it comes into my head. It just pops in there and I'm like, I should have said this, but I didn't.
Wow. I will say that if I've had a conversation that day, sometimes I'll go back, but it's all out loud. I'll tell myself what I would have done differently, or like I'm a big journaler, so I would write about how that conversation went and how I would do something different.
Well, I don't think we learned anything. I think I'm still spiraling out of control. I don't know where we go from here. She seems okay. I know millions of people that do not feel okay about this situation. All I'm going to say is I hope it helps give some scientists a better insight on how the mind works.
So this is truly a fascinating concept, and it is almost like, to me, it just seems like a different way to interpret reality and communication and how to navigate life, but it's such a drastically different approach that the other person or the other type of approaching seems almost foreign to us. So this video came out, I believe, 5 years ago. So since then, he's actually had an update that goes over things that he's learned since this interview. So we'll watch that as well.
Dr. Hurlburt reached out to me to partake in his research. So I did that, and I made a lot of videos of me documenting how that worked. So just a quick recap, what that entailed was I would wear a beeper in my ear, and at random points of the day, it would beep, and I'd have to write down what I was thinking and how I was thinking. If you watch some of those videos, it's hard to do because when you first start on the first day, you're thinking about how you would explain your thoughts the whole time. So when the thing beeps, that's all you're thinking.
Real quick, in the comments, just describe what you're thinking right now.
The beeper for the first time today. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm watching Survivor, a show that was very popular in the early 2000s. It's still very good if you don't watch it, all right? We'll see how this goes. I'm gonna try to be as transparent as possible, unless it's gonna affect future jobs. The beeper hasn't gone off yet, but I have noticed that I've been, like, conscious of it. So, like, I'm, like, trying to avoid thoughts that I wouldn't want to talk about on camera. I need to, like, figure out how to just, like, live my life normally without realizing that I'm being part of an experience. But it got easier as time went on, and I got to watch Dr. Hurlburt deconstruct my thoughts. So during this process, I learned a lot about myself and how people think. So it's not just one way of thinking. You don't just have an internal monologue or you don't. Sometimes you're using it, sometimes you're not. There's a bunch of different ways that you could think. According to the research, there's about 5 different ways that you can think, and you interchange them, and you can use them together and in different ways. So the main 5 ways are 1, internal monologue, or inner speech. But then there's visual. Some people can taste thoughts. For example, if they want a hot dog, they can taste the ketchup and mustard. Some people feel things, where it's a physical feeling. And then there's something called unsymbolized thinking, where you don't feel anything, you don't see anything, you don't say anything, you just kind of know it. That's hard to explain, but I made some videos kind of explaining how that works. Doing Dr. Hurlburt's research was good. It allowed me to learn a lot about how I was thinking. I was able to almost organize my thoughts into different categories, and that can help in certain situations, which I loved. I felt like I could organize my mind. It was almost therapeutic doing his research. If I had some critiques of it, I think it's difficult to capture your thoughts in a quick moment and have to write them down, because they can be so abstract and there's so many things going on at once that it's hard to accurately just describe it to someone. All in all, we're all unique. We all think different. We all describe our thoughts differently. Some people may think that they don't have an internal monologue when they actually do. Some people may think they have one when they actually don't.
It is really essentially how you perceive reality, and apparently there are 5 different ways to approach it. That's a lot more than I've initially thought there would be. It does seem like sometimes I will be thinking sometimes, and other times I will just be feeling something. Other times I'll just be envisioning something. So yeah, it does make sense that there are different ways to approach consuming things in your mind, or just deliberating things in your mind. And just the fact, just the concept of thinking in general is such a, like, how do you put that into words? This is such, just the concept of thinking itself is such a ludicrous concept. Just ruminating on thoughts. How do you describe thoughts in general? Gosh, we're getting a little bit too deep and philosophical here. Let's move on.
Your world is an illusion. Your choices are irrelevant. Your friends, your family, and everyone around you are just manifestations of your mind. You're a trapped animal in a cage, a virtual reality created more than 250,000 years ago for a single purpose: to use you as food. Your emotions are food for those who created the cage. Feelings of happiness and joy are digestible, but those emotions are nowhere near as nourishing as sadness, malice, and especially anger. Pain on a small scale is good, but pain due to war, famine, and pandemics, well, that's even better. You're born, you grow, and you spend the first third of your life learning how to live in a society that barely knows you exist. Maybe get married, have kids, maybe even grandkids. Then you die, and the pain ends. But death is just the beginning, because now you get to do it all over again.
I was just trying to seek a little bit of solace from existential crises, and then we hop into that. I mean, it's a very scary concept, but that's a very valid part of many conspiracy theories. But I want to point out the optimistic, fun music that he's got playing while talking about this existential dread.
The oldest recorded history comes from ancient Sumerian texts, and that's where we're first introduced to the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are believed to be 7 deities, also referred to as the 7 gods who decree. Their purpose was to determine the fate of mankind, and their stories mirror some that we find in Greek mythology. And like the Greek gods, the Anunnaki dwell in the heavens, but also interact with people and influence events here on Earth. Gods from polytheistic religions like the Anunnaki, the Greek gods, and the Roman gods served many purposes. They were used to explain natural phenomena like Zeus creating thunderstorms. Thor also served this role in Norse mythology. The gods provided comfort about the uncertainties of life and questions about mortality, the afterlife, and human suffering. Gods and their myths established social norms and values. Myths often included lessons about the virtues of honesty, courage, and wisdom, or the danger of hubris and deceit. Worshipping gods who represent these qualities creates a framework for social and moral order. Gods are part of the creation myth of many cultures, used to explain the origin of mankind. This was also true for the ancient Sumerians. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, written thousands of years ago, the Anunnaki are directly involved in the creation of humans. However, the stories about the Anunnaki might not be myths. The stories might be history. Zechariah Sitchin, in his book The 12th Planet, claims the Anunnaki are actually aliens who visited Earth thousands of years ago from their home planet Nibiru. When they arrived, the deity called Enki added alien DNA to ancient man, and the result was us. The intention was to create a slave species to mine gold for the Anunnaki. The gold was refined and used in terraforming their home planet, which was suffering from a poisoned atmosphere. Now, this may sound like a far-fetched story to some,
Not to me.
but this creation story shows up in other cultures as well. There's an ancient Zulu legend about 2 brothers named Wawani and Mpanku, who were from an alien race with scaly skin. Thousands of years ago, the brothers stole an egg from a fire dragon, emptied out the yolk until it was hollow, and then rolled it across the sky to Earth. That egg was the moon. Many ancient texts describe a time when the moon didn't exist, or at least it didn't exist here. Aristotle wrote about the Pelasgians, who lived in ancient Greece since the oldest days, at a time before the moon. Apollonius of Rhodes also talks about a time when the moon wasn't yet in the sky.
In ages past, before the silver orb adorned night's somber shroud, Gaia stood alone. The tides lay still, untouched by Luna's grasp, and darkness reigned where moonlight never cast its tranquil spell. Oh, how the gods conspired to shape that radiant disk.
Greek historian Plutarch wrote about the Arcadians. They were a very ancient people who lived in Greece. Plutarch described them as a pre-lunar people. Roman poet Ovid also wrote about the Arcadians.
In Arcadia's lush fields, where Pan's flute sang, a truth lies hidden, nearly forgot by man. The Arcadians are said to have possessed their land before the birth of Zeus, and the folk is older than the moon.
Evidence of a sky with no moon has also been found on the other side of the world. In the ancient site of Tiwanaku in Bolivia, there are symbols that depict the moon coming into orbit. And this happened at a specific moment in time thousands of years ago, long before recorded history. According to the Zulu and other ancient cultures, The moon didn't form. The moon was built, and not built here. The Zulus say that the moon was built in another part of the galaxy by the alien race that Wawani and Mpanku came from. They built the moon as a monitoring station to keep an eye on us, the human race. But what kind of aliens are depicted in these old legends? They're not the small gray aliens. The aliens that built the moon are reptilian.
Lizard people?
Yep, lizard people.
Lizard.
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 Lizard people.
Let's go!
Lizard people.
David Icke has written over 20 books about various conspiracy theories. He's covered everything from the Illuminati to UFOs to the multiverse.
He's my hero.
But he's probably best known for his theory about a humanoid reptilian race.
Well, it's not a theory if it's true.
Do you mind?
Sorry. Lizard people get me really excited.
Oh, I know.
Did you know you can buy a Lizard People coffee mug from the iFile store?
No merch plugs, please. Icke claims that humans share the Earth with a race of shape-shifting reptilian humanoids called the Archons. Wawani and Mpanku, the brothers from the Zulu legend who brought the moon to Earth, were Archons. The Sumerians called these Archon brothers Enki and Enlil, who were also rulers of the Anunnaki. This race of reptilians primarily lives underground, but a few of them live among us as well. The surface-dwelling beings are here to make sure humanity stays compliant with and unaware of their plan. They're involved in the highest levels of government, business, and technology. They're monarchs, politicians, and bankers. They own and operate major media companies.
Mark, are the allegations true that you are secretly a lizard? I'm gonna have to go with no on that. I am not a lizard.
I am not a lizard.
They influence every aspect of human life. They are the Illuminati. When we describe the reptilians as shapeshifters, you might think of a creature that physically changes its shape, like Odo from Star Trek, Mystique from Marvel Comics, or Tonks from Harry Potter. Reptilians don't do this. They actually always look like themselves. What they do is manipulate the human brain to perceive them differently. The source of the reptilians' power is their ability to alter our perception of reality. And they don't do this with telepathy, they do this with technology.
Is this the concept of They Live, the film with Rowdy Piper, with the glasses on that turn everybody into the zombie alien-looking creature?
According to David Icke, the moon is not only a spacecraft, but also a holographic projection device. The broadcasts from the moon warp our reality, or at least our perception of reality. There's what's known as a frequency embargo around the Earth.
Wait. Who enforces this embargo?
Well, there's a bunch of alien races who are part of a galactic federation, and they keep an eye on the reptilians, but it's a whole thing.
Go on, I got time.
No, it needs its own video.
She got me all excited. This is a bunch of bullshit.
There is much more to reality than we can perceive with our senses. And the human brain is quite capable of experiencing the true universe. In fact, it was specifically designed to do so. But the frequencies that would allow us to see the real world are being blocked. Instead, we're locked into this simple three-dimensional existence, but there is much more being withheld from us. If you believe in simulation theory, then these beings are the creators of the simulation. If you're religious, then these beings are demons or jinn. Either way, they're not our friends. But why? Why would an advanced race want to keep humans oblivious to the real world? Well, when humans were first created, the alien creators learned something. All other animals on Earth are driven by instinct. The instinct to eat, to survive, to reproduce, and that's about it. But when the first humans were given sentience, a byproduct of that sentience was emotion. Sure, humans are still driven by instinct. We're driven to survive and reproduce like every other animal.
Ugh, and I got the guppy support payments to prove it. Oof,
But because humans are now aware of themselves and their existence, they experience the world differently. They experience fear of the future. Humans experience the pleasure of nostalgia for the past. No other animal has this gift, or this curse. Animals kill for survival, but humans kill out of hate. Our alien creators learned that our emotions carry energy, and the creators learned that this energy can be consumed for nourishment. Unfortunately for us, negative emotions are the most nourishing of all. Some have described the alien desire for negative human emotion as a drug addiction. If humans were able to see and understand our true reality, we'd know that our energy, or soul, or spirit, or whatever you want to call it, can move to a higher plane of existence after we die. But instead, the alien creators, addicted to our emotions, keep us here. We're born, we live to feed the creators, then we die. Then we come back and do it all over again. It's forced reincarnation. This process is handled by a piece of equipment that's been called a soul recycler, or a soul cube, which is a large box-shaped device that's installed on the moon. The cube watches us and then transmits our energy back to Earth after we die, over and over again, and has been doing so for thousands of years. Now, I know the theory sounds like science fiction, but many skeptics were turned into believers on December 6, 2021. That's when, completely by accident, a lunar probe took a picture of the Soul Cube.
It's my conclusion over many years that reincarnation is a trap. It's not that it doesn't exist, although I don't think it's quite the same as it's explained. It's a bit more subtle, maybe, but I do think it's a trap.
The recycling of souls, reincarnation, is the machinery of this universe.
John Lear, son of Learjet inventor Bill Lear, flew his first flight at age 14. He became a stunt pilot, a contract pilot for the CIA, and set multiple aviation records. But John Lear's most known for his theories about the alien presence on Earth. He's also exposed a lot of information about the cube-shaped soul catcher on the moon.
The soul catcher is I think is the 6 mile high tower in the middle of Sinus Medai, right in the middle of the center of the moon as you look at the moon. And the famous photo that Richard found, Lunar Orbiter 384M, shows that huge tower. And he also has 2 other photographs that show that tower. I think that tower is what I call the soul catcher. When you die, your soul goes to the soul catcher.
But the moon isn't the only place these soul catchers exist.
There are several soul transmission stations, both on Earth and on the moon, and depending on where you're going in your next lifetime is which transmission station takes over.
When you couple John Lear's belief in the soul catcher with David Icke's theory that we're stuck in an endless loop of reincarnation, an unsettling reality emerges that our only purpose is to serve as food for our alien jailers. And what's even more upsetting is that negative emotions are really what they crave. Supporters of the reptilian humanoid theory say that when there's a global event that affects millions of people, like a war or major conflict, it's our jailers at work.
It might explain why Cro-Magnon Homo sapiens sapien is so violent. Why are we always in states of war? Why are we competing and always challenged by murder and violence?
I really don't like the idea that we're not in control of our lives. And I really hate the idea that we're not in control of our death. So my mind just rejects the idea altogether.
Yeah.
But then I found this.
Uh-oh.
What the is that?
That is the Soul Cube on the moon.
Leaping lizards! See what I did there?
This photo was taken December 6, 2021 by the Chinese-made lunar rover Yutu-2 while exploring the far side of the moon. A cube-shaped object is clearly seen 80 meters from the Von Karman crater. And for some reason, the China National Space Administration labeled this object Mystery Hut. And this only lends credence to the idea that the moon is a sort of observatory with a soul-harvesting machine. There's even more evidence that Earth is actually what some call a prison planet. In his book, Humans Are Not From Earth, Dr. Ellis Silver contends that humans are actually from another planet. They were brought here thousands of years ago and mated with Neanderthals. The hybrid species is us.
My thesis proposes that mankind did not evolve from native Earth organisms, but evolved elsewhere and was transported to Earth between 60,000 and 200,000 years ago. Mankind is supposedly the most highly developed species on the planet, yet is surprisingly unsuited and ill-equipped for Earth's environment.
Where does the population growth come into all of this, though? Is that Because the population has burst. You know, we're over 8 billion people on the planet now. And that number, well, I don't know if the number's rising anymore. I believe that birth rates are actually slowing down. So in any case, I'm curious if they're going to go into, where the birth rates are going to come into all this. Because if we're all just recycling the same soul, is it we're all recycling one soul, or we just have one soul that goes on to the next host? Do some souls just chill out in between spawnings? Or
The idea that extraterrestrials played a role in human history is also known as intervention theory. Dr. Silver argues that if humans actually evolved on Earth, we'd be much more comfortable with the environment. For example, humans are really the only animals that are susceptible to sunburn. Fish, reptiles, birds all have natural ultraviolet protection in their scales and feathers. Whales and dolphins have special skin cells that repair DNA damaged by UV radiation. Any mammal with fur is protected from ultraviolet rays, including apes. If we evolved from apes, why did we lose our hair? Evolution is supposed to make us stronger, not weaker.
Not true for your Uncle Vito.
That's true. He's pretty hairy.
Pretty hairy. Ugh, I bet that guy can open a banana with his feet.
Dr. Silver points out that human babies are basically helpless at birth. They require constant attention for years or they'll die. Yes, some species of animals require parental care for a time after birth, but there are plenty of species that require none. Insects, fish, and most reptiles are born completely self-sufficient. Some land mammals are born standing up. Some birds are born with their eyes open and able to find food on their own. No other animal on the planet is as helpless as we are at birth. Silver claims the reason so many people have bad backs is that we evolved on a planet with less gravity. That's why as we age, our knees and hips give out. We're not designed to be so heavy. We're also prone to chronic illness more than other mammals. So why were we brought here in the first place? Well, Silver has a few ideas. One is that humans were brought to Earth as a natural predator to wipe out other species. Now, if that's true, it worked. At one time, there were several different hominid species living on Earth at the same time. As recently as just 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and at least one other species coexisted with each other for several 100,000 years. Then modern man arrived, and suddenly all other species were gone. But Dr. Silver has another theory that tracks with a lot of what we've discussed today, that humans were removed from our natural environment because we were violent, we were destructive, and we overconsumed natural resources.
Well, that hasn't changed.
The theory said that the aliens erased our memories so we'd have no recollection of the civilizations and technologies we left behind. Then they dropped us off on Earth and left us to our own devices. They watched us for a while to see how we developed, and eventually they left. All the UFO activity we're seeing now could be our creators coming to check on their creation. Maybe they're checking to see if we've evolved past our violent tendencies. Maybe we're finally ready to be released from our prison and reintegrate into galactic society. If that's really why they're here, then unfortunately for us, our parole, it's going to be denied. The existence of the human soul has been pondered, well, forever. Greek philosophers like Plato and Socrates proposed an immortal soul that lives on after the body's death. Many religions say the soul originates from God and exists eternally. But does scientific evidence support the existence of a soul that can be quantified? In the early 20th century, physician Duncan McDougall tried to determine if the soul had measurable mass. He thought that if a soul existed, it would have weight. So upon death, the soul would escape and the weight loss could be detected. McDougall had 6 dying patients placed on sensitive scales, finding that they lost an average of 21 grams at the moment of death. He concluded this represented the soul's mass. But this small sample size and errors in methodology cast doubt on the experiment. Modern neuroscience says our consciousness and sense of self exist in our physical brain, not a separate soul. Brain imaging shows that our personality, our memories, and capabilities are tied to physical patterns and activity within our neurons. Damage to certain areas of the brain through injury or disease can impact sensory perception, mobility, emotions, and even one's identity. However, there is an argument that, sure, the brain is responsible for cognition and awareness, but a soul could simply be energy that creates our consciousness. And if so, that consciousness could continue after death. According to new theories using quantum physics, the soul may exist in another dimension beyond our normal space-time. Some tie this to quantum non-locality and entanglement. This is where information is passed between particles not just faster than the speed of light, but instantly, no matter how far apart they are. This theory says the soul interacts with the human body through quantum states, exchanging information instantly across any distance. Studies of near-death experiences provide intriguing reports of the soul leaving the body and passing through a tunnel and encountering angelic beings or dead relatives. Yet neuroscience says many elements of NDEs are generated by physical brain activity under stress. Out-of-body and near-death episodes have been induced in controlled settings by stimulating specific parts of the brain. Conclusive scientific evidence of the human soul has yet to be discovered. But maybe the soul isn't meant to be detected with a scale or a microscope or a computer.
Right.
And just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Religions around the world say the soul is eternal. In Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the soul originates from God and can achieve eternal life through faith and virtuous living. Hinduism and Sikhism believe the soul is immortal and reincarnated based on karma. Buddhism is a little different, though. The Wheel of Life provides a symbolic map of samsara in Buddhism. Buddhists must attain enlightenment before moving beyond this cycle, and that can take many, many tries. And that's starting to sound a lot like the Soul Recycler. And here's something interesting. In the image of the Wheel of Life, which is found on the walls of monasteries and schools all over the world, Buddha's pointing at the moon.
No way. Wow, that's... Yeah.
The moon is the most familiar object in the night sky. It's inspired stories and myths and even religions. The moon has fueled scientific intrigue throughout human history. But here's the thing. The moon is weird. By all accounts, it shouldn't even be there. The moon's orbit is extremely close to the Earth. In fact, it's the largest moon in relation to its host planet in our entire solar system, or any solar system. We've never found anything like this in the galaxy. And this proximity has made total solar eclipses possible. This is because of the precise diameters and distances between the sun, moon, and Earth. This is an unbelievable coincidence.
Right.
Some might say impossible.
There is no astronomical reason why the moon and the sun should fit so well. It is the sheerest of coincidences, and only the Earth among all the planets is blessed in this fashion.
It's not only too close, it's too big.
That's what she said. What?
Oh, hecklefish.
Using other planets as a reference, the size of the moon should be about 40 miles in diameter. That's it. It's over 2,000 miles wide. This is also not seen anywhere else. The closest comparison is Pluto and its moon Charon, which is about 2/3 the size of Pluto. But this probably doesn't count because Pluto and Charon are a double dwarf planet.
That's what she said.
What?
What?
The Earth and Moon are also really a double planet. But there's something else strange about that. The barycenter, or center of gravity between the Earth and Moon, is inside the Earth. That means there should be a wobble in the Moon's orbit. The Moon does wobble a little bit, but its orbit is one of the most perfectly circular that's ever been seen. The Moon is also precisely locked in orbit so the same side always faces Earth.
Yeah.
This is also highly unusual among moons and planets. Some scientists argue that the Moon doesn't wobble because it's not very dense. But that's also a problem. If the Moon and Earth were formed at the same time, which is the leading theory, then why is the Earth so much more dense?
Because the moon is hollow.
Right.
The Lunar Orbiter experiments vastly improved our knowledge of the moon's gravitational field, indicating the frightening possibility that the moon might be hollow.
In November 1969, Apollo 12 launched as NASA's second manned mission to the moon. One of the key objectives was investigating the moon's interior. Apollo 12 astronauts placed seismometers on the lunar surface, similar to those used to detect earthquakes on Earth. The astronauts then intentionally crashed their ascent stage module into the moon to gather seismic data. Now, instead of typical seismic patterns, the data showed the moon vibrating for over an hour. The moon was famously described as ringing like a bell. The phenomenon led some to speculate that the moon might be hollow or contain significant hollow spaces. This theory is supported by the still classified Apollo 17 project called Chapel Bell. And this sounds like an experiment that has something to do with sound, but all these years later, it's still classified. Why? In 1970, two Soviet scientists proposed that not only is the moon hollow, the moon is an artificial spacecraft brought to Earth a long time ago. This spaceship moon theory explains many of the anomalies, like the low density, the sound reverberation, and why the moon is even here at all. Spaceship Moon also explains the strange crater issue.
Crater issue?
Oh yeah, moon craters are very odd. When an asteroid impacts a moon or planet, it leaves a crater. The bigger the asteroid, the deeper the crater, right?
Yeah, I feel you.
Well, on the moon, no matter how big the object that impacts it, craters don't penetrate deeper than a couple of miles. Now, this could be explained by a rigid, impenetrable outer shell encasing the moon.
Spaceship Moon!
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
If the astronomical data is reduced, it is found that the data require that the interior of the moon is less dense than the outer parts. Indeed, it would seem that the moon is more like a hollow than a homogeneous sphere.
Data also indicates the moon's core is less dense than the outer layers, the complete opposite of, well, every other celestial object ever discovered. This could be evidence that the moon has vast hollow inner cavities. Also, the soil and moon dust on the surface are actually older than the rock and soil within the moon. That only makes sense if the interior moon was mined, hollowed out, and then the material brought to the surface. Now, there are scientific explanations for all of this, but to be honest, they fall short.
Looking at all the anomalies and unanswered questions about the moon, the best explanation for the moon is an observational error. It doesn't exist.
It's easier to explain the non-existence of the moon than its existence.
We cannot help but come to the conclusion that the moon, by rights, ought not to be there. The fact that it is one of those strokes of luck almost too good to accept.
The moon is weird. It shouldn't be there, and it might be hollow. But is it a transmission device that affects our behavior? Well, there's more crime during a full moon. There are more car accidents. Sensitivity to pain is higher during a full moon. A full moon disrupts our sleep. Some people are prone to erratic behavior during a full moon. This is called the werewolf effect. This is also where the word lunatic comes from. Talk to a cop or a nurse. They'll tell you that they can tell when it's getting close to a full moon.
Really?
Again, science tries to explain this erratic behavior. Like there's more crime during a full moon because it's easier to see.
No. It's also easier to get caught.
Right, the science is thin. And notice that all these changes in behavior during a full moon are negative. More crime, more pain, more car crashes. If there are aliens feeding off our negative emotions and they use the moon to do it, well, suddenly everything makes sense. But there is good news. You can fight back.
This is all so deep. The implications are so vast that it's beyond comprehension, really. Like we can't even comprehend a reality where if this were to be true, what kind of reality would we have where it weren't the case? You know, it's essentially we only exist because this stroke of luck occurred.
Reptilian humanoid aliens using technology to alter our reality in order to create negative emotions? Our souls being used for food, then recycled over and over again on the moon? This story is a lot. And how much of it is true? Well, a lot of it depends on your perspective and what you choose to believe. But let's take it one piece at a time. The Anunnaki are documented in Sumerian texts, but there's plenty of documentation of Zeus and Apollo and Athena and the rest of the Greek gods. Same with Roman gods, Norse gods, all gods really. But are any of those gods real? Well, you decide. But Zecharia Sitchin's interpretations of Sumerian texts have been largely discredited and disregarded. He's been criticized for inaccurate translations of the Sumerian tablets. Skeptics say he manipulated the translations in order to support his theory.
Yeah, but his story is true.
Maybe. But the story about gods coming from the sky, creating man or helping man, that story is almost universal. The Anunnaki are also connected to the Great Flood, which is a story found in every culture on Earth. Supporters of the Anunnaki theory claim that human genetics have traces of alien DNA. The truth is, human DNA is pretty boring. Our DNA is close to everything on Earth. Chimps share almost 99% of their DNA with humans. Dogs and cows share around 80%. Birds and humans share 65% of their DNA. Humans even share over 50% of their DNA with bananas.
You're related to a banana?
Yup.
Maybe that's why you got a peel.
Dr. Ellis Silver's theory that humans didn't originate on Earth is really interesting. He lays out a lot of scientific evidence to support this theory. But even he admits the theory has some holes, and he's released updates to try and fill in some of these holes. Still, mainstream science rejects the idea that humans originated on a different planet. But there is a wrinkle. In 2020, researchers discovered that about 50,000 years ago, ancient humans procreated with a species that scientists didn't know existed. They call this ghost DNA, and the timing lines up perfectly with Dr. Silver's theory. His book is amazing, and I'd love to do a full episode on how humans might have been transported here, so if you'd like to see that, let me know. That will be a wild ride. Now, let's talk lizard people.
Lizard.
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 Better.
The most well-known proponent of the reptilian conspiracy is David Icke.
My hero.
David Icke is well-read, well-spoken, and highly entertaining. His theories are extremely creative. But like most conspiracy theories, you can't prove or disprove him.
Yaha!
But remember, in 1991, he claimed to be the son of God and the world was going to end, and he made this claim on television while wearing a turquoise tracksuit.
Good to see. Good to see. You do claim to be the son of God.
Oh, come on, heroes wear tracksuits.
The lizard people story seems to have started in 1934 with an LA Times article. A mining engineer claimed to have found tunnels underneath Los Angeles. A Hopi Indian told him the legend of the lizard people, who are an advanced race that escaped through the tunnels 5,000 years ago.
Well, that's why so many movie stars are shape-shifting lizard people. Easy commute.
Maybe, but there are no tunnels and there is no Hopi legend of lizard people, so I don't believe that one. And honestly, when I started this topic, I didn't believe any of it. Well, except for the moon stuff. The moon is weird. But while researching, I found myself bouncing between feelings of depression and fear and anxiety and especially anger. The message boards, blogs, comment sections I came across are filled with people expressing outrage. They're furious that they have us all trapped in this never-ending loop of misery, that we're made to endure this torturous, unfair life time and time again. We're not given a choice to come back or not. Our only purpose is to be food for our prison guards. But if they truly believe that an advanced race is feeding off our negative emotions, well, they're giving our jailers exactly what they want. There were so many comments that were blame-seeking. I saw a lot of people with a self-centered victim mentality. It was frustrating to read, but I understand it. Life is hard. Life is unpredictable. And life is painful. When things in life go wrong, it's easy to shift responsibility to a theoretical they instead of looking in the mirror. David Icke, John Lear, and others who promote the reptilian conspiracy say that we don't have to exist in an endless cycle of pain and reincarnation. Negative emotions fuel the cycle. Positive emotions can break it. So you have a choice. You can choose to be the change. Choose kindness over anger. Choose acceptance over judgment, and choose gratitude over the endless desire for more. Choose joy over sadness and mercy over revenge. Just choose love over hate. Now, I know it's not easy. I really do. But your life really can be whatever you want it to be. The choice is yours.
Another great episode of the Why Files there, and ending on an absolutely wonderful message that I completely agree with. It doesn't matter really who is in control of humanity and doing all of these different deceptive and malicious, potentially malicious acts, because at the end of the day, we get the opportunity to perceive it how we will. What I do find kind of interesting, people are able to speak about these potential massive grand conspiracies that point out potential, elite, the proverbial they he was mentioning there. If they were really in charge and all powerful, then theoretically they would be either stopping these individuals. You have to consider, why are they allowing these individuals to continue educating and sharing to the general public that they exist and they're manipulators and they're just consuming and taking advantage of people. All these awful things. Why would they allow these people to share this secret? One, they don't have the power to do anything about it. Or two, it's actually good that they're sharing these ideas. They're potentially perpetuating disinformation. You know, you gotta sprinkle a little bit of truth in with the whole load of BS and fluff, just to keep the masses hooked, just to keep them hooked on there. I do appreciate that he did leave it on a good note, though, with the firm way of combating a potentially evil source that is consuming parts of humanity. The best way to combat that is through love and gratitude and appreciation and trying to make the world a better place and try to make light of any situation. I think that is our best way of potentially combating beings or entities that consume our emotions, and negative emotions are even more powerful. So the way to stick it to them is to only produce, positive emotions, and then it also just makes life better and more enjoyable for yourself and those around you, which is, always a benefit. With that said, we're going to leave it on a bright note. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, you are appreciated. Much love, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Cheers.